Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Apologies for the long wait between episodes. Things have been a little bit hectic and the whole food poisoning incident did not help things out. But hopefully after this week things should go back to normal and we should get through the rest of the iceberg without any interruptions. I have seen some of you guys suggest Bumbles' new video about fighting game characters. Now that one I think I'll check after we get through the iceberg. I kind of don't want to do things randomly in the middle, just so that I don't break up the flow, you know? But anyways, if you guys haven't already, this is a new episode, so make sure you go do so. Please go and support the original video. Link is at the very top of the description, like always.
Frog the Jam. Yu-Gi-Oh's history with translation has been a rocky one. In the early days, you'll get cards like Hinotama or Raigeki, where the card would use Japanese equivalents for names that in Japanese are given English names. Hinotama in Japan is just called Fireball. Ryukashin is Gargoyle. Raigeki is...
Okay, this has nothing to do with the video, but I just instantly recognize the background music. Isn't that the main menu music from City of the Wolves? Or maybe it's like an OG track from an older SNK game that I'm just not aware of. But where I recognize it from is City of the Wolves.
Thunderbolt. This could also lead to things like Giant Trunade being named after a thing that doesn't exist because they miswrote the Romanji version of Tornado. These are mostly fine and have no effect on gameplay.
Yeah.
Heck, for cases like Trunade, it makes it sound more fantastical. Like this is a level above a tornado or a hurricane. It's a
I guess, kind of. I do recall comments from you guys talking about the whole situation with Yu-Gi-Oh cards sort of being banned in South America. And some of the cards being translated quite literally to like Satan or devil certainly didn't help the case there. I still genuinely think though, it would be a really funny thing to just get some of these more conservative, like Christian people and have them learn about Shin Megami Tensei. I don't know, I think I'd enjoy that.
Trunade! One thing that did end up becoming a problem, though, was when these translations had gameplay implications. What I'm talking about are cards like Summoned Skull. In Japan, Summoned Skull was called Summoned Daemon, which means that when Archfiends, which is what Daemon was translated to, became an archetype in the Pack Dark Crisis, any effect that included them would include Summoned Skull. The issue, though, is that while that would be true in Japan, for Americans that wouldn't work, since Summoned Skull didn't have Archfiend in its name. Once the problem was realized, later reprints of Summoned Skull would include the line of text saying, "This card is always treated as an Archfiend card."
I see. Just a bit of a band-aid solution there. Now, obviously, when you have cards that interact with each other with specific keywords like this, then yeah, translations will start to have issues. You gotta make sure that things are exactly the way they should be translated. But of course, with the examples that we gave earlier, like those were singular stuff and that didn't really interact with anything else, so yeah, it was kind of a whatever situation.
This is a really odd solution, putting Skull in a strange position of being a normal monster with an effect that isn't an effect. I mean, you can't negate his name. Or wait, maybe you can.
Wait, you can? Target any number of face-up monsters your opponent controls, those monsters' names become unknown. That is a really interesting effect, because there are quite a few things that you can only do with specifically named monsters. So I guess this is a very unique form of disruption, but maybe it's just like too unique to even really see play. I do find this card quite fascinating. However, I've never actually seen this in use in like a real game.
Cards whose translated names aged poorly include Harpy's Brother, Cyberstein, and Diffusion Wave Motion. When the Harpy, Cyber, and Fusion archetypes were established, these guys were big problems, since they don't count due to not having those words in their original Japanese names.
Gotcha.
While Harpy's Brother was simply renamed to Sky Scout, Cyberstein and Diffusion Wave Motion were given tags like Summoned Skull that said they were not invited to the cookout and do not have the pass.
Well, with this situation, it's more understandable because maybe they came out before all that happened, or there wasn't really a consideration for it to be an archetype with a specific keyword. So yeah, you'd probably just have to go back and change things once you notice situations like that.
Most famous of all of these monsters, though, is without a question Frog the Jam. Frog the Jam was released back in 1999 in the premium pack at, and sit down for this, Ultra Rare, and was named Keru Soraimu, translating to Frog Slime. When the frog archetype properly started, this presented a problem, as Frog the Jam was not a part of it and would therefore break the rules. But this card is called Keru in Japan, and Keru means frog, right? Well, you'd be right, except for the fact that the proper frog archetype doesn't use Keru, it uses Geru. Both are ways to say frog, but where frogs like Dupe Frog and Swap Frog use Geru, Frog the Jam uses Keru. Long story short, this
I see. Now, this channel may be called TheLegitWeebs, but I will not claim that I know anything about Japanese. Or Japan, for that matter. Never been there myself. But I guess even the Japanese language, probably especially the Japanese language, has their little quirks here and there. When it comes to the spelling of things, and at least from my understanding, like the letters that you use to write particular names can completely change the meaning behind what that is, despite it having a similar sound or the same sound. Well, it's not exactly that. I think for a lot of Westerners, whenever they try to learn a language like Thai, they'll have some difficulties because mostly in English, when you use a different tone of voice, that is used to denote like a sentence, a command, or a question. But in the Thai language, you would use it to change the meaning of a word. Like, for example, ma would mean dog, but ma would mean horse. And for English speakers, that's basically the same MA sound, but it's not. it means something different.
This guy sits at his own lily pad. Frog the Jam was both a huge problem, but also too insignificant to give attention to, as he was only ever printed once in a McDonald's promo pack. Despite that, every piece of frog support released until 2016 had to specify that it worked with all frog monsters, except Frog the Jam. You can add one frog monster, except Frog the Jam. Banish one frog, except Frog the Jam.
Bruh.
And with how much frogs were played, this made people super confused as to why the card needed to be removed if it was never going to see play regardless. In 2016, ironically because of the release of a card that itself isn't a frog, totally awesome, Konami finally decided to kill the joke and reprint Jam with its new name of Slime Toad.
Yeah, that's fair.
Other cards like Hardened Armed Dragon and Elemental Valkyrie have had similar treatments, but none of them have had such a prolific history like Frog the Jam. Anti-drug PSA. This is going to sound crazy, but that's only because it is. The early 2000s was at the tail end of the war on drugs in America, a war we lost even though we were the only ones in it. We were past the days of cartoon all-stars to the rescue and Mario telling us we're going to hell. We were gearing up to tackle obesity next, so who cares what Ed, Ed, and Eddie are smoking? One of the last major anti-drug campaigns that used cartoons as the spokespeople was with Yu-Gi-Oh! As a part of the My Anti-Drug campaign in 2003. The idea with this campaign was that instead of giving kids a general idea of why not to use drugs, they would instead focus on something personal to them, like family, their friends, or a sports team, and make that the reason to not use drugs. As far as messaging goes, it's a pretty good idea, and to make it happen, the Office of National Drug Control Policy would team up with the three usual suspects, 4Kids, Blockbuster, and Sandy Lion Stickers. The boys are back in town! Sandy Lion Stickers would produce stickers using the Yu-Gi-Oh! Characters with anti-drug messaging, which would then be sold in Blockbusters. Seeing what each character had as their reason to not do drugs is pretty great. Joey does it for his sister, Yugi does it for honor, Kaiba does it because he likes winning, and Pegasus does it for power. I guess if the reason you need to stay off drugs is world domination, well, hell, he's doing what we asked.
You know? Hey, whatever gets you there, man. I think the idea in and of itself isn't bad. I'm not too sure on the execution or whether this actually made any sort of difference. It's probably something hard to quantify. Now, obviously, I'm not an expert on this subject matter, so take whatever I say here with a grain of salt. But I feel like maybe this particular issue can be sort of similarly solved to, like, piracy. Whereas piracy occurs when the services offered aren't good, and it's just not worth people's money. And so you sort of resort to other methods to obtain what you're looking for. So I think, like, having, well, one, a reason, plus just things in your life that help you not fall into those kind of paths, and I guess have something to strive for, something to do, would certainly help out a lot. Which I guess is also why I'm kind of skeptical with the how effective the sort of marketing campaign would be for this particular subject matter. Considering I don't really think it addresses the root issue, but it's sort of a way to support that, I suppose.
This would also extend into Yu-Gi-Oh's online presence, as going to the Yu-Gi-Oh website in 2003 would let you watch an exclusive animation about the dangers of weed.
Oh god.
I know
That was
marijuana
loud.
is harmful. I know it can't improve my game. My friends and I have faced many battles, and we have always dueled without drugs. I wouldn't be the world's best duelist if I smoked marijuana. It would disappoint my friends and lower my concentration. And losing control with drugs is one duel I don't want to have.
Damn.
I must stay healthy and keep my friends
Bars.
close if I want to defeat my opponent's monsters. I will never dishonor myself or my friends by using drugs. That's playing a game I can't win. Honor. My anti-drug.
So much to love here. Special
Right.
attention to the fact they had key art for Yugi and Joey, but not Tristan and Taya.
So they just
quickly had to
grew
draft
them.
these two up in paint before lunch.
Yeah.
The promotion unfortunately didn't go much further than this. Whether it was the plan to make it this short, or it wasn't very popular, hard to say. Nowadays, the campaign is all but forgotten, save for that animation being shared around every once in a while. And a Yu-Gi-Oh player never did drugs again.
Definitely.
The next Zodiac.
Oh boy.
The impact of Zodiacs in Raging Tempest can't be overstated no matter how hard you try. Immediately, we're talking within the week of their printing immediately, Zodiac bulldozed the entire game. The combination of their extreme ease of use, absurd power, and versatility meant that at YCS Seattle, the first event where Zodiac was playable, 25 out of the top 32 players were on Zodiac.
And why
The
wouldn't
deck
you?
was insanely consistent, able to use any one of its monsters to get into any one of its Xyz monsters. Had no problems breaking boards due to the power of its main boss monster, Zodiac Drident. It was instantly recognized as the best deck Yu-Gi-Oh had ever seen.
I mean, when I played Master Duel, Dryden was at 1. So I guess the power was somewhat limited, but I'm assuming back then Dryden wasn't limited like that, so I'm kind of scared to imagine what it would be like to play against full power Zodiac.
What made Zodiacs even more deadly was their incredible splash ability. With only a few main deck and extra deck slots dedicated to Zodiac monsters, the deck could fit in its best pieces into anything and give whatever it wanted a major boost. From the Metal Foes and their Pendulum summons, to the Infernoids and their Graveyard setup, to their most infamous team-up, the Kaijus, replacing anything with a worthless Kaiju that would get blown apart by Zodiac Drident. Independently, each of those decks was already performing impressively, but adding Zodiac on top of that made them way stronger.
Interesting. Is Grass is greener. That's not legal in the TCG currently, right? But I guess if you're going to play Infernoids, then yeah, obviously you'd be playing grass.
Zodiac's destruction tour continued as YCS Atlanta, Guatemala, and Prague would all either be swamped by Zodiac or won by them outright. If you tallied up the top cuts of all 4 of these events, you would have 112 available slots to fill. Zodiac took up 92 of those 112 slots. When banlist season came around, any hit to this deck would have to be from a baseball bat to slow it down. And post-banlist Zodiac got even better. Before they even got their new support in the next pack, they took 29 of the top 32 spots at YCS Denver, and 12 of the top 16 spots at YCS Bogota post-banlist. The next set, Maximum Crisis, would come out and introduce even more Zodiacs. More Zoo variants like True Draco, and Zoo would just keep getting better and better. It wasn't until Konami got out the heavy-duty weaponry and hit Broadbull, Trident, and Ratpier that the deck finally stopped. To this day, the Zodiac deck is so strong that just the release of Trident off the list with nothing else was enough to make Zoo a viable deck again after it mixed itself with the Tri-Brigade cards.
Oh yeah. That was like the thing you'd see everywhere when Master Duel initially released. And Tri-Brigade Zodiac was also just incredibly consistent as well.
Now that we've talked about Zodiac though, what does the entry itself mean? The next Zodiac? Well, Zodiac's power left Yu-Gi-Oh! Players with a twitch. We'd been smacked so hard that now we were on high alert. The next Zodiac refers to a phenomenon in Yu-Gi-Oh! Where the player base will often overvalue a deck upon reveal and proclaim that its power is comparable to Zodiac's. This is often followed by a swift and immediate flop.
Is this the same thing as saying stuff like, oh, this MMO is the WoW killer, or this new FPS game is going to be the Halo killer, or stuff like that? Yeah, more often than not in those situations, it is certainly not that, but also ironically the thing that kills whatever series that you're referencing is probably itself. It still baffles me how, well, maybe not even the devs, but like the companies, the corporates behind the games themselves just are so out of touch that they don't understand why their games are good. Their whole thing is about making money, and yet they fail to understand why they're making any money. Like, I don't get it.
The term was coined by Yugi-tuber Lithium2300 when talking about the Magical Musket deck, saying the deck's consistency, power level, and potential made it a successor to Zodiac as the best deck in the game.
Don't think so.
What made this sting all the more was how not only was Magical Musketeer not that good, it wasn't even good, period. Thanks to this tag of being the next Zodiac, Magical Musket is considered one of the biggest flops in Yu-Gi-Oh's history, due to the community being convinced it was about to kick the door down, only to end up stubbing its toe.
It is quite fun to theorize about what new cards are releasing and how they'll potentially shake up the meta. I still do this with, well, we didn't do it for the last set with Serby, but we used to do it for Shadowverse Worlds Beyond. And more often than not, we were wrong, and we went into those streams knowing that we were going to be wrong. But you know, the idea itself is still fun. It's just so difficult to really understand how a particular card or archetype will interact with literally everything else in the game. Especially for something like Yu-Gi-Oh! Where there isn't a rotation. So some random card that nobody has ever seen before is just going to rise to popularity because somehow it works in a particular combo or something like that. Like, those aren't really things that you can foresee. But of course, the internet is the internet, and content creators will be content creators. You gotta stir up the drama in order to get those views, you know?
As an aside, I have a personal hatred for the Magical Musketeers after I got into an argument with somebody claiming Magical Musketeer Max, their Link monster, was a better card than Predaplant Verte Anaconda.
What?
Not only is this card not better than Verte Anaconda, it's not even the best Link 1 trap-themed monster from the pack of its release. It's just a worse Trap Trick Sarah. Now, not every deck that got the next Zodiac treatment was as colossal a miss.
Okay, it's been a while since I played Magic Musket, but Verte Anaconda is used basically universally, no? And Sarah is a really good Link 1. So yeah, I can understand why Bumbles would be somewhat heated from that. That's fair.
As magical muskets were. Decks like Orcust and Sky Striker were said to be on Zodiac's level, and while they were certainly top strategies, the tag of the next Zodiac was not warranted, and even more so, doesn't have a solid definition. Do you mean it's the next Zodiac in terms of power? In terms of representation? In terms of its versatility? Other decks had those, but nobody had it to quite the extent the Zodiacs did. Eventually we actually got it right when Tier Element was called the next Zodiac,
Yeah.
and well, they were right. For my money, no deck got hit worse by the Zodiac curse than Fluwandereeze. A deck of level 1 bird monsters who gave you a load of additional normal summons instead of special summons. I don't know why this happened, but when Flu was revealed, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community went into meltdown. People were calling for the end times because of the birds.
God. End times. Every single time I hear them, PTSD back to Warhammer Fantasy, man. Ah, Jesus. However, is it really any wonder? Whenever anything gets revealed that people think may be like a little overpowered or in a particular direction that they don't like, it's always doom and gloom. Doom posting is rampant, probably even more so nowadays than it used to be before. And unfortunately, with how social media works, it just kind of promotes you to do that because, well, it drives engagement.
With one infamous comment saying that Flu was so strong, they needed to invent a tier above Tier 0 for how much play this deck was going to see.
Tier -1? Where are we going with this?
Like this deck was going to be the only thing we ever played with for the rest of time.
The hell?
It was fine.
Yeah.
Expansive storylines. Card storylines are one of Yu-Gi-Oh's strongest aspects.
I do
Creating
love
lore
that.
intertwined through card art and effect gives players an incentive to check out newer packs to see if Skull Servant finally got to go on vacation. But usually storylines like this will be limited to a single series or archetype. Every now and again you'll get a case like S-Force, which involves decks like Psyframe, Time Thieves, and Evil Twins, but this is hardly as complicated as it gets. For that, you need what are loosely called expansive card storylines. These are stories that take place not just over several archetypes, but often entire cycles of card pack releases, usually taking years to play out properly. The very first example of an expansive card storyline is the Dual Terminal. Originating from the arcade machines of the same name, the Dual Terminal is a realm of 4 tribes in constant conflict. The sedentary Ice Barriers, the mercenary band X-Sabers, the reclusive Mist Valleys, and warlike Flamvels are trapped in a never-ending war, until one day a threat from outer space unites them. A meteorite from the W Nebula arrives on Earth and unleashes the Worm Menace, as they begin a full-scale invasion of the planet, forcing the disparate tribes to join forces, eventually constructing the weapons of war, the Allies of Justice. By building the ultimate decisive armor, the Allies are able to fight back against the Worms, only for their war to awaken another dormant tribe, the Fables. These devils begin to encroach on the surface until they get blown up by a giant rock falling on them.
Oh.
Don't worry, guys, happens to the best of us.
No.
Eventually getting sick and tired of all of this, the Ice Barriers unseal the 3 legendary dragons, causing an ice age and setting the world back to 0. This is the ending to the very first part of the storyline, which would go on for a later 2 sagas.
Okay, good. I was gonna be like, damn, we're really just gonna cap it here with Trishula coming out and just wrecking everybody. I do appreciate the whole creation of a storyline, an interconnected one too, between several different archetypes. It just gives so much more meaning to the archetype itself and the cards that you play, and there's something that you can connect with.
The storyline would span dozens of archetypes, from all the ones mentioned above to the Naturia, trying to defend their home and sacred tree, which it turns out is actually housing a computer program meant to reset the world if things ever get too crazy, which becomes the Cleefort.
Oh, I see. I did play Naturia, but I didn't know about their story. Kind of reminds me of like the SCP contingency plans. Whenever something breaks the world, we have quite a few plans up our sleeve to reset things.
Who are then destroyed and release Infernoids, which resurrect a destruction god named Tiara. There's the Gishkis, remnants of the ice barrier who specialize in water magic.
Oh, the
who have their own
remnants.
subplot going into the conflict within a family as a mother descends into madness and eventually starts mutating herself and her children with forbidden magic. When the Fableds are killed, they release an ancient virus, which at first manifests itself as the bug-like Steel Swarm, before evolving further into the Evil Swarm virus, which resurrects dozens of previously killed characters into disgusting mutated masses. Then there's just trying to keep track of how many times Gem Knight Diamond dies. Would you guess these two are meant to be the same character? It was Yu-Gi-Oh's first attempt at a storyline like this, so it's very unfocused and hard to make sense of if you start from the beginning.
Look, that's fair. You gotta start from somewhere. The first iteration of it isn't gonna be perfect, and you're gonna learn a lot of lessons from it. But the act of doing it in the first place is what's important. I'd say the same thing about really anything in life, I guess from what I can speak of. Especially if you're starting YouTube. Your first YouTube videos are gonna suck ass. Please do not go and watch our older videos. I sound like a completely different person because I was so nervous recording all those videos. And I'm sure like 5 years from now or something, I may come back to these videos and cringe at the things that I say or how much more, I guess, articulate I would be, hopefully in the future. Who knows? But you just gotta do it. You just gotta go out there and put yourself out there and see what happens.
Especially if you don't dip into the guidebooks to get a clearer picture of what's going on. But when looking at what comes after it, it's one of the most important storylines in Yu-Gi-Oh's history. Next was the World Legacy series, following
the
a
Orcus
plucky
cards.
band of RPG analogs, Aurum, Ib, Ningirsu, and Imduk, living under the control of the Mech Knights, and fighting for their lives against the hive mind Crawlers. One day, they find a special chalice, one of the 7 artifacts needed to save the world. And along with their new ally, Lee the Fairy, the 4 of them get upgraded and set out to defeat the Mech Knights and eliminate the Crawlers. The Mech Knights kidnap their cleric Ebe and reveal they're actually not evil after all, which Lee sees as a great chance to reveal she was evil the entire time, steals
Holy
Ibe's
shit.
body, and then mutates the Mech Knights into monstrosities.
Wait, isn't this particular Mech Knight the one on the right here? The mermaid-looking one? Isn't that one banned? Either banned or limited? I feel like I saw that on the forbidden list at one point. Could be bugging, though.
The only Mech Knight who escaped, Blue Sky, gives up his life to empower Aurum into Avram, as Ningirsu has to fight back against all of the mutated nightmares at the same time. The 3 remaining World Chalice members are able to fight back against the nightmares and then fight Ibli, the new combined form of Ib and Lee, only for Ib to get control back long enough to kill herself. From there, the
Damn.
remaining fighters fracture, as Avram and Imduk create the justice-seeking Crusadia, and in an attempt to resurrect his now dead sister, Ningirsu creates the cold and mechanical Orcust, eventually bringing the 2 former friends back into conflict, as Lee plans in the background for her own resurrection. The storyline is so much easier to follow than the previous, thanks to its truncated length, lasting
more
only
interesting,
1
too.
series of cards rather than 3. World Legacy was a massive step in the right direction, showing that Konami, when they had the resources and knowledge of how to do it, could create a really engaging card storyline. The very next one, though, overshadowed both of these and is considered the crown jewel of Yu-Gi-Oh's storytelling potential.
Okay, which one is this gonna be? Branded Dogmatica, maybe?
The Branded storyline.
Yeah, okay. I feel like I learned about the Branded story a long time ago. That's probably because I had a special interest in the Dogmatica cards. I just thought they looked really neat, so I tried to build a pure Dogmatica deck, which wasn't great, but you know, it worked when it worked. Not sure, maybe nowadays they have more support so we can play more pure, but I suspect it was always meant to be more so an engine than anything.
Starting with a war between the Dogmatica Church and Tri-Brigade, which are mystical forest creatures ravaged by the horrors of war, the young Saint Ecclesia spots a portal in the sky that a dragon falls out of. Except when she goes to investigate, she finds a young man that's been branded with a strange mark. The two try to escape from the war into the depths of the desert of Golganda, only to come into conflict with the Springans, living missiles fighting to defeat a massive serpent who's taken over their land, which Albaz and Ecclesia assist with. While the two recover, a new threat appears in the Dogmatica capital, the Despia, an invading force of demons led by a jester named Aluber. Aluber has the same power that Albaz does to transform into dragon.
Freaking Branded Destia. They were quite a powerful deck when during their heyday. It's one heck of a thing to fight against.
And begins corrupting the bodies of the other Dogmatica followers into abominations. When Albaz and Ecclesia find out what's going on, they set out to recruit the ancient Sword Soul fighters to help them take back the capital. This one I'm going to leave a bit more vague, since it's really worth experiencing for yourself. The story takes a lot of twists and turns that make it a really interesting read-through. By the end of the story, people were on the edge of their—
Oh yeah, Ice Jades! Oh, okay. Honestly, I kind of forgot about them, but if I did go back to Yu-Gi-Oh, maybe I can try making like a pure Ice Jade deck. That would be incredibly horrible. I don't think they work pure, but I love the theming for Ice Jade a lot.
Their seats waiting to see what new factions would appear, how Albaz and Ecclesia's story would conclude, and what they could even do to stop Aluber. They even have a filler arc where one of the Springans goes off to become the world champ. This storyline was so popular, they released a book in Japan that contains every single card released as a part of the storyline, as well as the lore written out for the very first time. There's a reason people are excited that Konami is turning this one into an anime series.
Oh, really?
And they stopped being hyped when they saw the Sky Striker one. The next storyline was something very strange, as it was actually meant to run parallel to the Albaz story. And I think might have wrapped up before the Albaz one did. Vsauce Starfrost is the story of a man named Vsauce, whose emotions were stolen.
Hey, Vsauce here.
And scattered across different dimensions, infecting alternate versions of himself with his worst aspects. Now he has to confront them all and absorb them back into himself to become one again. I don't know what it is about Vsauce, but nobody cared about this storyline. Maybe it's because he gave us Tear-Element and Kashtira back to back, like a cat gives you a decapitated mouse, but whatever hype there was for Branded was not there for Vsauce. It eventually ends with the guy responsible for his suffering, Veda Upanishad, reappearing, restarting time, and then we do the whole thing over again.
I don't know how I feel about that kind of ending. Now, granted, this is a very rough summary of the story itself, and Bumbles is right, like, I know about the Branded story, but I do not know anything at all about the Vsauce, Tear-Element's, Kashtira story at all. I guess it just never came into my feed. Maybe people just weren't that interested. But the whole sort of ending where it's like a perfect loop that goes back to the very beginning and then you redo everything all over again can either be impactful or forgettable or straight up make the viewer feel like they wasted their time. If any of you guys have ever seen Devilman Crybaby? I think that is a example of a good use of something like that. Although I'm sure opinions on the ending were quite mixed. At least from my experience, I did enjoy the use of something like that with the ending there. But yeah, I don't know how I feel about this one.
Am I selling it short? Maybe, but a much more interesting storyline was right around the corner. The Diabellstar lore is our latest one, which just wrapped up.
The Snake Eyes,
and follows the Dark Witch Diabellstar on her hunt for the sinful spoils.
Don't know about this
of
one.
Dangerous artifacts. The first one she finds is the Snake Eye, which manifests itself into various creatures like Ash, Oak, and the massive Flamberge Dragon. She manages to subdue the eye and transform it into her new pet, Poplar. I would hate to leave out a pun this clever too. All of the Snake Eyes are level 1. And what do you call it when a pair of dice comes up with two ones? Snake Eyes. The story actually starts after this when the main characters appear, the Badass Goblin Bikers. That is not a pseudonym, that's their name. And when they power up, they become the Kick-Ass Goblin Bikers.
Yeah!
They don't do too well. Poplar, and by extension the Snake Eye, is then stolen by Diabellstar's old friend, Diabells the original Sin Keeper, as the two are now in conflict as Diabells fights to get her pet back. This is another one I won't go too much into since it only just wrapped up, so it should be easy for you to get into, especially since it has goblins in it. These expansive card storylines have become a fan-favorite part of the game for the past 5 years, ever since PAX stopped having anime stories to draw from.
I'll have to look more into Snake Eyes then. The whole story aspect behind these cards might be enough to get me back into the game. We'll see. I sort of need some other motivation to draw me in outside of just playing the game itself.
And with a new one starting soon with Artmagia, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Oh! Was it Frost that told me about Artmagia? That like they were somewhat similar to Witchcrafters, so I should check out the deck. I do recall a comment like that. It's been a while though. But yeah, I mean, if this is a new story, I should definitely check this one out too.
Happens to try to not make another Vsauce. Oh my god, I completely forgot about Draco Slayers. If you want to know the story, it's about Trident and friends trying to stop this guy. He is Hitler if he was a dragon.
I'm assuming in lore, but also VFD in game was absolute torment. If you didn't draw the out, you're screwed. The fact that you can just lock out any particular well, actually, how did his power work? I think you basically called a monster type that could be summoned, or like an elemental type that could be summoned. And so if you called a type that your opponent did not have, then they just didn't get to summon anything. Something like that. I could be wrong though, so feel free to clarify in the comments if you guys know.
Cards made by fans. Any kid who grew up playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Has tried making their own cards at some point. They all had infinite attack, were divine, and had Goku in the art. This was a coming-of-age ritual. Don't act like you didn't do it. You'd dream of becoming a card designer, and then learn that Konami will fake your death so nobody will know your true identity, and then reevaluate. But there was actually a way for young players to live out their dreams and see their cards become a reality. Both the OCG and TCG have held tournaments for young fans to send in card designs to be turned into real cards. As soon as the very first Yu-Gi-Oh! Video game, Breed and Battle, fan designs have been used for the templates of cards, with the very first of them being Taihon. While its adapted version in the card game would eventually look much different from its Breed and Battle version, this was the first time a fan's design would be used for a monster. And by the release of the second Yu-Gi-Oh! Video game, Duel Monsters, there were 9 designs taken and used in the game that were submitted by fans. The most iconic, or I guess ironic of them, is the original Twin Long Rods, which, like cards like Morphean and Shape Snatch, have become fan favorites because of how ugly and weird they are.
Right.
From here, about once a series, we'd get a fan contest that would result in some new cards. usually all lumped together in the same pack. GX is the outlier, as instead of printing all 3 cards that were accepted, 2 of them were used for designs exclusive to the anime. Again, though, in close proximity. The anime boss of the Monarch deck was Demiurge Emma, and alongside another monster named Load of Darkness, used almost right after Emma, were both made by fans, selected from a contest where 3 winners would get their cards printed. The last one was the only one of the 3 who actually got printed, Rallus the Starbird. I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth, but if I wasn't the one of the 3 who got printed, I'd be pissed. The 5Ds contest did actually manage to print all the cards who won, with 5 in total making the cut. These included Splendid Rose, Morphtronic Vacuuman, Chaos King Archfiend, Bird of Roses, and, most surprisingly of all, Drill Synchron and Drill Warrior. Not only were these 2 much more important than being the Bird of Roses, since they would be used by the main character, they were also 2 of the Synchron and Warrior monsters who saw the most play. So, hats off to the kid who drew these.
Awesome.
Especially because this picture of Drill Synchron is
Oh,
really
so
funny
cute.
to me. Zexal's contest wouldn't give us quite so many strong cards, as it went back down to 3. Giving us Bachi Bachi Bachi, Dote Dotengu, and Tatakawa Knight being released in Lords of the Tachyon Galaxy. You really had to drop the baby cards in the same set as the Dragon Rulers? You're about to learn, kids! Sometimes dreams shouldn't come true. Arc 5 was
Yeah, freaking Dragon Rollers. From what I recall from that era, they were the top dog.
next, and because Arc 5 can't do anything right, they only included 1 fan-made card, Performapal Trump Witch. Vrains would have no fan-made cards because Vrains hates children. The TCG also got in on the fun and held a few contests itself to include some fan-made cards in upcoming packs. Usually run through 4 kids in events like the Duel to Rule and Design Your Destiny sweepstakes. Duel to Rule gave its first prize winner a trip to the 2010 World Championship, a chance to duel a world champion, and the ability to design their own card on top of becoming the leader of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Nation. That event was won by a kid named Christopher, who was able to create his own card, Vampire Dragon. The Design Your Destiny sweepstakes was an art contest where kids could submit their designs to get them published in the pack Gladiator's Assault, and I am begging somebody to help me find this. There was an ad they did for this sweepstakes with Joey and Yugi, and Joey draws a monster riding a scooter, and then either Joey or Yugi says, "Monsters can't ride scooters." This stuck in my mind like I witnessed the Kennedy assassination, but I can't find it. The winners of this... Well, actually, let's see if the playing field was fair. You have Tongue Twister, a cute little design. Screech, oh, very impressive shading, Kristen, good job. All right, now let's show off Dragon Ice.
Holy!
You f***ing cheater, you're a grown man, get out of here! Of course, if you want to talk about the most famous fan-made card, there's really only one.
Okay, before we get into the next section though, I do think these companies should hold more competitions like this. Not for, just profit, but I mean, they basically get free designs and potentially jumpstart careers too. Like, I think it was one held by Capcom when it came to like Mega Man enemy designs or boss designs. And one of the pieces of art that was submitted that actually did become an actual design in the game was made by the guy who made One Punch Man and Mob Psycho. So yeah, I think these competitions are just great opportunities to find potential new artists out there. And I hope they do much, much more of them.
Tyler the Great Warrior. Hey, fair warning, this is gonna be a bit heavier than most. Not much fun to be found in childhood cancer, so let's just treat this right. Tyler Gressel was a 14-year-old kid in 2002, when he went to the doctors reporting intense abdominal pain. It turns out what was causing the pain was undifferentiated embryonal sarcoma, a form of cancer that typically appears in children between 5 and 15 and targets the liver. Tyler immediately went in for surgery, which resulted in the removal of 6 inches of his large intestine, 25% of his liver, and his entire gallbladder. If everything hadn't played out perfectly, there was no doubt that Tyler wouldn't have survived. But something beyond luck was helping out Tyler, since the doctor performing the surgery had actually seen one of the less than 20 cases before this and was able to remove the burst mass. During his recovery, the Make-A-Wish Foundation reached out to Tyler and his family, and for his wish, Tyler wanted to create his very own Yu-Gi-Oh card. In collaboration with 4Kids and Konami, they were able to make this happen. The initial sketches for Tyler's card were done by Tyler himself, before being sent to no less than Kazuki Takahashi himself.
Of course. Of course the man would do it himself.
Who, after translating the sketches into his own style, sent them back to Tyler for approval. The results are the card Tyler the Great Warrior, a one-of-a-kind card that represented Tyler's struggle, representing him as a Super Saiyan-style warrior with a sword, shurikens, and a black belt, with the unique pack code of TYL. Being a one-of-one makes Tyler the Great Warrior likely one of the rarest Yu-Gi-Oh cards in all of existence, as it was never reprinted or redistributed in any form. Konami doesn't even have a copy of it in their official card database. Only Tyler has it. That distinction as such a rare card proved to be a great thing for Tyler in 2023 when it came time to part with it. Since it was such a rare collector's item, Tyler made the call to sell the card in order to set himself up financially. The card would sell to
That's
a private
fair.
collector on April 29th for a colossal $311,000, one of the
Holy.
highest sales in card game history, which Tyler put towards starting a family, business, and allowing his family to travel the world one day. It's one of the most unique stories in Yu-Gi-Oh's history, and for one that started in such a horrible, horrible place, having the ending we do have with Tyler alive and well is such an incredible thing.
You know, for a lot of the bullshit that Konami does, at least we could say that this was one W. A pretty big W.
Upper Deck. Konami, despite being the creators of the Yu-Gi-Oh card game, were often hands-off for much of the American production of the property as we know it. You'll be familiar with how much they let 4Kids handle the production of the anime series, but that wasn't all. As for the lion's share of Yu-Gi-Oh's first decade, production of the cards wasn't handled by Konami, but Upper Deck Entertainment. Founded in 1988, Upper Deck was an American and Dutch company who specialized in sports card manufacturing, making cards for both the MLB and the NHL, as well as cards for shorter-lived TCGs like Avatar and World of Warcraft. The deal they made in 2002, though, to distribute Yu-Gi-Oh! Was their biggest non-sports deal ever, reaching record-high profits of over $17 million in the first quarter after the two joined forces. Upper Deck and Konami would work together in harmony for that near decade I mentioned earlier, organizing events like Shonen Jump World Championship Series, the precursor to the Yu-Gi-Oh! Championship Series, the first major organized play that Yu-Gi-Oh! Saw in America. Those couple of things wouldn't really make for an interesting entry on its own, though, so things started to get weird in the 5Ds era, specifically around the release of their second set, Crossroads of Chaos. Konami had been made aware of a product being sold by a company called Vintage Sports Cards. They were selling a product called Duel Kings 2, with official Konami branding, as well as Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards inside of it. If they were simply selling repackaged cards, that would be bad enough. Except they were found to be selling extremely high-quality counterfeit cards as well, not just cards gotten from packs that were produced by Upper Deck and Konami. These counterfeit cards were nearly indistinguishable from the real ones.
What? You can't just do that. What the fuck? What? Okay, oftentimes copyright law is kind of bullshit, but this one, very interested to see where this goes. I never heard about this.
Only noticeable if looking at the Eye of Anubis stamp in the corner. First edition runs of cards would have a gold stamp, with unlimited runs having a silver stamp, though these were first edition runs with a silver stamp, meaning they were fakes. Konami went to sue Vintage Sports Cards, only for Vintage to divulge where these cards had come from. It turns out that on the sly, Upper Deck Entertainment had been producing and selling counterfeit cards in high and desirable rarities, in order to sell them to these resellers and make a load of profit all for themselves.
Oh my
Vintage
God.
Sports Cards disclosed that over 500,000 cards had been sold to them by Upper Deck. And now all of a sudden, this went from a case of Konami hunting down a reseller to them finding out that the people responsible for printing their flagship game had been scamming them the entire time. Upper Deck was added.
What the fuck? Okay, now that was a twist I was not expecting. But I guess I should have seen it coming. It's the world of business. Obviously, money comes first. Still, incredibly shitty thing to do.
To the lawsuit that Vintage Sports Cards was a part of, with Upper Deck trying to calm things down by revealing a bomb strapped to their chest, saying that if Konami took things any further, they'd bankrupt both companies.
Excuse me? Prescient threats of mutual assured destruction in counterclaims? What the fuck is happening? What? The drama that is happening right now is more palpable than some series that I've seen, who try to be dramatic.
They then tried to get Konami on breach of contract for trying to terminate their partnership following the discovery, and even went so far as to have the Netherlands branch sue the US branch to try to get a leg up. How that works, I have nowhere near the legal knowledge to tell you.
I would have to assume because of a particular branch in a certain country that if they sue it from there, then the legal claims happen there, and there may be more favorable laws in that country. I don't know. Just a guess.
The lawsuit continued into the production of the next pack, Crimson Crisis, as now it looked more and more likely that Konami could lose and end up halting production of the game. Crimson Crisis got delayed, sneak preview events for the pack were cancelled, and Upper Deck would hold a super sketchy tournament called Upper Deck Day, which was a way for them to drum up public support with extravagant prize cards as a way to dump said prize cards in case things went wrong. And wrong they did! Konami began winning case after case involving Upper Deck, with the few victories Upper Deck got being reversed, until the two companies settled out of court, with Konami leaving with an undisclosed amount of money, and Upper Deck leaving with a lifetime injunction, prohibiting them from ever producing Yu-Gi-Oh! Products ever again. As for Vintage Sports Cards, if they wanted me to find out what happened to them, they should have had a name that was easily searchable. From Duelist Revolution.
Okay, you know what? That's fair. Vintage Sports Card as a company name. Yep, that's a bad idea. But I guess maybe SEO wasn't really the thing on their mind.
Onward, Konami assumed full control of the brand and would distribute cards themselves. People refer to this event as the event that could have killed Yu-Gi-Oh!, and that's no understatement. With just a few different outcomes,
really.
Upper Deck's promise of mutually assured destruction would have come to pass. That delay in the release of Crimson Crisis could have proved fatal for Yu-Gi-Oh! Because card games like this require constant updates to keep their player base around. If Crimson Crisis had been delayed, players would have just found another game to play. It's not like Magic the Gathering and the Pokemon card game weren't doing just as well, if not better, around the same time. It wouldn't have been hard to make the transition. Upper Deck.
There's still a lot of card games out there that I don't know of, but it's kind of a similar situation, I would imagine, as to video games nowadays, where there is a certain expectation for a quality or level of a game. And if a new game releases and doesn't meet or surpass, or I think rather surpass that expectation, then people are just going to stick with whatever they are playing or whatever thing that comes out that's new that actually meets those expectations. So it's tough, man. It's really tough to break into the market. And once you're there and you're on the horse, you do everything that you can to not fall off of it. Same thing for YouTube videos as well. Like, especially if you're trying to compete when it comes to production value of your videos. There's all the like Mr. Beast clones out there who are probably going to have insane production value on everything that you're likely not going to beat. And even amongst themselves, they kind of, I guess, cannibalize their viewership to the point where some just fail. But you don't see the ones that fail. You only see the ones that succeed, obviously. Our channel doesn't really offer anything special at all, but we were super lucky to sort of carve out our own corner of the internet. And the community isn't the biggest out there, but it's big enough to sustain the channel, so I'm happy with where we are. It was a hell of a time to get here, though, I'll tell you that.
For their part, haven't exactly kept their nose clean in a post-Konami landscape, found by the MLB to be doing a very similar thing they were doing to Konami to their baseball cards.
The fuck?
Whether the more recent controversy of Upper Deck giving their employees exclusive cards meant to tank the secondary market is true or not, is just gonna have to come to pass.
Oh, God, this company, man.
Unused 5Ds intros. I miss when everything had its own website. I've already touched on how this affected me with Yu-Gi-Oh! And how I would absolutely abuse the refresh button on the official website to see when Bonds Beyond Time was coming out, check for when new packs were dropping, watch clips from episodes. It was the best. Same with sites like Nick Arcade and Cartoon Network. I honestly preferred when the internet was this sectored thing where every site had its purpose and intended age bracket. And now everybody just goes on Twitter and either sees a dead body or somebody's penis. I'd get really excited when these sites would start to do insight events,
true, actually.
like polls or mock elections or announcements for new games. 4Kids would have one such event, and it's one that ended up having a huge impact on the latest series of the time, Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. 5Ds would premiere around 2008 or 2009 on 4Kids, but before it launched, they actually held a contest where kids could go to the 4Kids website and vote on 8 different theme songs for the show. We had never gotten a second theme song for any of the previous shows. Now we had a whole 8 of them to pick from.
You can
With
vote?
them being just a little under a minute long each, I thought it would be fun to go through and do an impromptu top 8 list going over the best and worst of these themes, since it's clear why some got cut, but others sound really good.
Okay. Why would you go out of your way to make 8 different theme songs that you might not use? You're probably not going to end up using, unless if they used it at a different point in the show or something, just to hold like a little competition like this, a little voting thing for the community. I mean, it's cool. It's a neat idea. But I don't really see that being something you'd put out a budget for. Wouldn't really be the smartest decision out there. I guess they had the money for it, so they might as well, but don't know. Strange to me.
They say it's not about winning, it's how you play the game. But if I'm not first, then I'm the worst, and there ain't no one else to blame.
Okay.
Anything less, you're out of your league. You can't catch what you can't see. One's for losers, but number 1's for me.
Oh my goodness, that's so cheesy.
You say you will not be denied. Okay, you're one of the chosen 5. Jack Atlas, the master of faster, wants to defeat, delete, deplete. He wants to beat you. Dual runners gonna turbo duel. Come on, that's right, let's go. Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, the time has come now to break the rules. Come on, that's right, let's go. Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds.
Okay. It's not too bad.
You can tie me down. Throw away the key. Still breaking out of this one-horse town. Yeah, you can't catch me. Revving up,
This one, I don't know. I don't really feel like the Toad fits 5Ds.
Don't worry though, they knew they had gold, and reused this for a different 4Kids show, Go-Go Riki.
Oh, really?
Bogo's such a blast. Chico's his best friend. Wooly does poetry.
Okay, you know, this isn't too bad for this type of show, at least in my opinion.
You think I have enough free time to make shit like this up?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really gelling with this one. Not my kind of thing. Japanese.
What we need to find to survive. Now is the time for Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D. Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D. Speeding side by side, wait to make you move. What you gonna do when the future's up to you? What you throw away will make me faster, make me better. Grab it up. To turn it around, turn it around. Grab it up. To turn it around, turn it around. So this time speed is power. And what you see as
Power,
weakness
yeah.
makes us strong.
I don't know.
Check it out. It's time to make
I think this type of music just isn't for me.
has a moment felt so right. No doubt, it's down to me and you. Moving faster than the speed of light.
Got a feeling this one though.
Engine pumping faster, faster. Raging with an appetite for turbo speed. Going fast makes me feel alive. My heart beats in hyperdrive. Do you think you could win? Only if I lose. Just let destiny choose.
While the other songs, save for Need for Speed, were never used for anything else, they have been preserved and can be listened to via YouTube re-upload.
Thank goodness. It would be a shame to just lose them. But yeah, like honestly, out of all the songs that were there, it's only like the second and the first place ones that I felt I kind of jabbed with. But I also feel like it was mostly just due to me not being into this type of genre in particular. Or maybe it's just hard for me to imagine like an English OP for Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, because I watched that in Japanese with English subtitles. Now I'm thinking about it though, I can't even remember what the Japanese OP was like. It's been too long.
If you want to know what it would be like to live in a Butterfly Effect universe, imagine any of these actually being 5D's intro. Yu-Gi-Oh! Music to Duel by. Music has always been a really big part of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Series. In Japan, it's frequent to get a new opening every season, with some series ending up with 5 different theme songs, as opposed to America, where we usually get just one. Not just the themes either, they'll often get incredibly high-quality music made for the show itself, some even being lyrical tracks. No doubt
Very
the
common
most
thing with
iconic
anime.
is from Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, when the legendary Masaki Endo performed the song Clear Mind for the summoning of Shooting Star Dragon. And hey, he just did the opening for Perfect Origin Arc Season 2, I'm just saying! Even the games are no stranger to incredible music, with some legendary game composers like Hiroshi Tanabe and Wachiro Ozaki, who would go on to make music for the Metal Gear series, specifically Snake Eater,
Really?
working on some of those Game Boy Advanced games. With how much attention the music is given in Japan, it naturally came with physical releases called sound duels. Sound duels were simply CDs containing the soundtrack to a given Yu-Gi-Oh! Season, and they would include pretty much all the music they could. That begs the question, has America ever tried something like this? Well, once. Released on September 29th of 2001, Yu-Gi-Oh! Music to Duel By is a CD containing the soundtrack to the 4Kids dub of Yu-Gi-Oh! This was the first and only time the English soundtrack to a Yu-Gi-Oh! Series would ever be publicly released. Though it wasn't the only time 4Kids ever used that 4Kids Records label, as it was also how they released the soundtrack to Pokemon. Just like that Pokemon release, Music to Duel By has some instrumental pieces, compared to what the CD is now much more known for today, lyrical tracks. See, early 4Kids Yu-Gi-Oh! Had a lot of lyrical tracks. Moments like Kaiba hacking the Industrial Illusions satellite, or Joey and Yugi preparing for their duel, would be given theme songs like I'm Back and No Matter What. There were regular background tracks, including for moments like Exodia's summon or Blue Eyes coming out, but it's a lot less like the sound duels, which included loads of background music, and much closer to a regular CD with songs that were about Yu-Gi-Oh!
I find it very intriguing, the cultural differences between something like the American release versus the Japanese release, and I guess the attention to music. I'm very curious to know, like, what that stems from. Is it just, this is the type of media that you had experienced, and so the music part wasn't exactly like the emphasis of it. Therefore, in the future, you don't really emphasize on the music too much, or you're more into like lyrical tracks as opposed to a market where you can sell like the more instrumental tracks and people are just like super into the OST of a particular series, or like greater care and attention is paid towards making the soundscape of the series a genuine experience in and of itself, even outside of the show. Perhaps it even stems from just a different philosophy when it comes to creating things. That I'm not too sure on. But, it's just one of those things that I find fascinating with the differences between people and where they grow up in. At least to me, I've always valued the music, because when a creator or a team that creates something pays close attention to the music, I feel like more often than not, that means that they are very much, first and foremost, about the experience that people are having with whatever they've created, and they care a lot about that experience. That isn't to say that there aren't things that are amazing out there with, like, I guess, talking about games, some amazing gameplay out there that maybe has some pretty okay, maybe mid tracks underneath it. But, the gameplay makes up for all of it. It's just that when it has a good soundtrack, it enhances the experience and gives me confidence in the quality of the game.
Some of these are pretty good. No Matter What might be extremely corny, but it's not a bad song to listen to at all. But for everyone like that, you'll get a Dual Madness, or Face Up, Face Down, which is sung from Pegasus's perspective, by Pegasus voice actor and series voice director, Darren Dunstan. He wasn't the only 4Kids regular on the CD either, as a lot of other musicians who worked on this and other 4Kids productions would feature on the CD. Russell Velasquez, who made the themes to Sonic X and the Johto Pokemon seasons, would compose Time to Duel with Paul Blair, who would go on to become a longtime producer for Lady Gaga, working on Born This Way, Art Pop, and her movie A Star Is Born. It's a strong rumor that Music to Duel By was meant to be a test to see if the sound duel format could work in America, and whether by low sales or a change in approach, this would never happen again. That means official and even unofficial uploads of the majority of 4Kids background tracks are unavailable, beyond people trying to remove the audio of a scene to preserve just the music. Even a majority of the Duel Monsters OST is missing. Or at least it would be if not for Joel Doak. Joel was a composer on both Music to Duel By and a lot of the original series, and in 2009 would start uploading unreleased tracks from the series to his YouTube channel. Now if you want to listen to stuff like the theme of the God Cards or Kaiba's theme, you can thanks to Joel. The album itself has been preserved entirely online, and if sick curiosity gets the better of you, it's worth a listen. It's endearingly goofy, a monument to a time that's long past, and I wouldn't change a thing.
And it's always a shame when media gets lost, but at least there are the re-uploads here and there on YouTube, and people trying to preserve something that I guess maybe they didn't see too much value in. But yes, I think this is probably a good cutoff point for now. I shall return, hopefully soon. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed your time here. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Later, dudes.